You're looking at this semicircle of row of desks, and the members of parliament sitting there like, boring. We've got to sit through another protocol. Not interested. I said, thank you for having me, and I want you to know that I have lived and worked in 37 countries, and every one of those countries made me feel welcome, except Norway. You saw the heads come up like, say what? I said, in fact, well, the moment I got off the airplane, they made me feel welcome, except Norway. Now they're leaning forward a little bit more on their desk. So when I moved into my apartment, the landlord and the neighbors made me feel welcome. Not Norway. Now the jaws are starting to drop. So I would go downtown. In all these countries, I'd go in and they'd make me feel welcome. Not in Norway. Nobody's made me feel welcome in Norway. Now the MPs, they're getting this really nasty look. I said, every place else, they made me feel welcome. But in Norway, you have made me feel at home. Thank you. And with that, I exited. Needless to say, it went over well. But it was the truth. It was the truth. After all of that, and after my time in the military, I was eventually put out on a medical. And I developed, they found that I had developed multiple sclerosis. I was sent to a place called Wilford Hall, which is a hospital in San Antonio, Texas. And it's the Air Force version of Walter Reed. And while there, they did all sorts of evaluations. And finally, one day, the senior resident came in. I was in the exam room. And he said, you're cleared to go back to your home unit. I said, fine. What's the result? And he flipped through the pages on his clipboard and said, oh, okay, you have MS. I was like, what? I had no clue what that was. I did not know. He said, well, he looked at me like I was a dummy and said, that's multiple sclerosis. I said, huh? Okay, what's the prognosis? He said, oh, you're going to become a vegetable and die. That was how I learned I had MS. I went back to my base in Colorado, where they ran a full week of testing, 7 days, 5 days one week, 2 weeks the next, 2 days the next week. Poked me full of holes. I was afraid to drink a cup of coffee. I knew I would leak on the door. That's it. And they came in and said, you better put your affairs in order. I said, what's that? This is August of 1995. I said, put your affairs in order because you have 2 to 6 weeks to live. I said, okay. Disapprove, resubmit in 90 days for final disapproval. I said, I don't accept it. They said, you're going to die for even though you understand. I said, yeah, so are you. We're all going to die from the moment we are born. Get used to it. And that is one of the times that they wrote my obituary. They've written my obituary 6 times in my life. 4 times from the 4 airplane crashes. Oh yeah, I had a knack of living through airplane crashes. Once this time, August of 1995, and then in December of 2015 when they gave me 4 weeks to live. I went upstairs and he said, "You're not ready yet." I went downstairs, he said, "No, I don't want the competition." So I'm back here. And I'm blessed to be in your company. I had this diagnosis of MS, and it was kind of hard. During my career, I'd had the opportunity to work directly for a lot of very distinguished people. People like presidents, President Reagan, people like then Prince, now King Charles, then Prince, now King Hussein of Jordan, Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister of England, Prime Minister Hawke of Australia, Caspar Weinberger, Secretary of Defense. Here I was on a roll, and suddenly I'm told, I'm no good to the military anymore, I have MS. So I took a flight back to England, and I found my adoptive mom on a racetrack, and I had a good cry. After a few weeks, she said, "Kid, pull up your big girl panties and get on with it." So I boarded an airplane back to the U.S. I was flying cattle class, okay, frequent flyer. That means they put you back behind where the bathrooms are. And I was sitting in the departure lounge, and this very presentable gentleman, about my age, maybe a few years older, sat down next to me and started chatting me up while we're waiting for our flight to be called. Well, it's fair enough. Then after a bit, he got up, excused himself. He said he had to visit Mother Nature. Okay, fair enough. I don't need to know this. Well, he went, came back, and then they called my name to the desk. So I got up and said, here I am. I said, "May we have your boarding pass?" I said, "Sure, here you go." I said, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, we've made a mistake." "Excuse me?" He said, "Oh, yes, you're in first class." I said, "Say what?" "Oh, yes, of course. Well, thank you very much." "Oh, I understand. These things happen. Don't worry about it." He said, "No, we have your new boarding pass. Here you go." And as she handed it to me, they started calling for the pre-boarding for the first class. And I went, I don't know what's happening here, but I like it. Just go with the flow. Got on the airplane, sat down, opened my book. Yes, I'll have a cocktail, please. Yes, I would like, let's see. Oh, I don't know what you recommend. I'll take anything. How about Scotch and rum? Fair enough, thank you. Who should sit down next to me? The same fellow who had been chatting me up. Okay. I can see where this is going. Opened my book. Started reading. Somewhere over the Atlantic, it was nighttime, so it's dark outside. Only the little reading lights were on at the top of the cabin. And I was reading my book, and he touched my elbow and said, "You know, you're so cute, you should be a model." And I'm thinking, listen, fella, now in my mind, you obviously want to try and join the Mile High Club. No, not going to happen. I said, "No, I mean it." I said, "Yeah, right, sure." Turns out he owned controlling interest, major stockholder, in the umbrella corporation that owns, amongst other things, Red Book magazine. And he said, "Well, I want to do a shoot." I'm still thinking, no. He said, "Well, I'll take you to New York." No. He said, "I'll take you to New York with a chaperone." No, I'm starting to think perhaps. He said, "I'll take you with a couple of chaperones if you want." Yeah, okay, now I'm in. We landed in Texas, Dallas Fort Worth, changed flights, flew to New